You think you hate libertarians enough, but you don't. The nicest thing to say about libertarians is that they are deeply unserious people. Now, I know we all think Ron Swanson is cool, but the reality is that only bad parodies of libertarians are even mildly interesting.
Idea of a perfect government is one guy who sits in a small room at a desk, and the only thing he's allowed to decide is who to nuke. The man is chosen based on some kind of IQ test and maybe also a physical tournament, like a decathlon. And women are brought to him, maybe, when he desires.
The libertarian meme really reached its zenith in 2016 when no one wanted to vote for Trump, who was, and is, brash, uncouth, uncontrolled, and undisciplined. And yet, neither did anyone want to vote for Clinton, against whom any number of negative accusations could be levied. Even with these advantages, libertarians were unable to put their best foot forward. The libertarian primary debates were certainly something.
The government requires licenses for far too many things. The government requires licenses for people to broadcast radio. The government requires licenses to get married. They require a license to drive. What's next? Requiring a license to make toast in your own damn toaster? Absolutely not.
Oh boy, a toaster, eh? Maybe Daryl Perry in particular should need a toaster license.
In that context, a license to drive? I'd like to see some competency exhibited by people before they drive.
One almost feels sorry for Gary Johnson here, and then one remembers that he is still a man without a chest. So, is there any libertarian out there to save us?
The president has no constitutional authority to regulate drugs. That being said, at the state level, I would support some legislation that would stop children from being allowed to purchase drugs and prosecute anyone who would put a child in danger. Because I do believe that children do need some protection. Yes, you should not be able to sell heroin to a 5-year-old.
Leave it to Austin Peterson to be the hero, speaking truth to power and accepting ridicule from the so-called libertarians. Oh. I guess he's fallen into the Tate ideology. There goes any goodwill he may have earned from me. As an aside, the artist he attacked actually has a channel on YouTube where you can watch her creative process. It's kind of interesting. Now, that may seem to be a bit cherry-picked. It's not like libertarians have a habit of backing terrible people. But what's a retweet? Surely they didn't champion Dave Smith or anything.
But it's also worth pointing out that this was the peaceful attempt. The movement to boycott Israel over its treatment of the Palestinians, this was the attempt to do it peaceful. Like, this is literally what, even in our public schools, they celebrate about the civil rights movement, is that it's like, yeah, these massive boycott campaigns.
The idea that Israel has mistreated Gazans is either willful ignorance or active evil. I guess his evil, though, is unsurprising given his brain-dead opinion on Bill Buckley.
Like, I view Bill Buckley as one of like the great villains of the 20th century. I think he ruined.
I couldn't agree more.
Yes, but he was clearly very, also CIA, by the way.
The nouveau droit inclination to sacralize evil and hate actual conservatism is disturbing. That Tucker Carlson would sign on to such an idea is unshocking to the serious observer. Surely the libertarians don't lionize anyone else repulsive to morality. What is wrong with these people? For those who aren't up to speed on the Ross Ulbricht story, a channel called Barely Sociable has a good video about him and his project, The Silk Road. The TLDR of why Ross Ulbricht should be in prison for the rest of his life is that he attempted to hire hitmen multiple times. For those weirdos who thinks, but there's no evidence anyone died, hiring hitmen is still attempted murder. The world is better off with him behind bars. Well, at least the libertarians have never, in their official capacity, defended Hitler. I guess we all know that the New Hampshire branch of the party is a little odd. Maybe the National Party is better. So we just listened to the odious Dave Smith lecture us about how boycotts are not warfare. So why is it the official position of the Libertarian Party that boycotts are acts of war? Embargoes aren't boycotts, I hear the lulberts say. They're the same thing, but at different scales. So maybe the libertarians have some problematic implementations, but surely their actual platform isn't so bad. Plank 1.3, Privacy. The Libertarians seem to believe that the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution protects privacy. The best living Supreme Court Justice and verifiable black man, Clarence Thomas, disagrees. The Fourth Amendment specifically protects property, and privacy isn't property. An argument can be made that the government should protect privacy, but it doesn't come from the Fourth Amendment. Perhaps their argument could come from a robust defense of intellectual property rights. Oh, I guess not. Intellectual property rights are a good benchmark test for understanding Chesterton's fence. If one understands why intellectual property rights exist, then one wants to maintain them. If, like the National Libertarian Party, one opposes them, then clearly one is too stupid to even have an opinion. Do you know who understood intellectual property rights? The founders. The Constitution explicitly defends the right one has to their own intellectual property. Plank 1.4 doesn't help the Libertarians' case for reasonability. YouTube doesn't much like this topic, so I'll just leave it at Libertarians are destroying the cultural milieu which promotes righteousness. Throw Plank 2.10 in there as well. Lulberts seem to have trouble not making themselves look like perverts. Plank 2.4 is utopist to the extreme. There's a reason the Constitution grants the federal government the power to levy taxes by force. The Articles of Confederation are a grade school topics. Why Libertarian haven't learned this lesson is beyond me. Plank 2.12 is shockingly decent. My only issue is that education should be explicitly religious, as the founders intended. Too bad they follow a good policy with one of death. Anything even remotely resembling Canada's MAID program should be explicitly criminalized, with the death penalty for any so-called physicians who perform it. So what's a libertarian to do about the military? Apparently stupidly missed the point of the draft. To be clear, an argument against a particular usage of the draft is acceptable, but it's the height of idiocy to say as a matter of principle that the draft is unacceptable. Oh, and no borders. I can hear the music of John Lennon in the background. So if borders have no real meaning, then what even is property? Can I trespass now? What about invading a home? The last plank I want to talk about is 3.7. There are really only two endpoints of a devotion to the right of self-determination, and both are psychotic. I'll be graceful and assume that the libertarians are just stupid and haven't thought that far out. The first endpoint is that which denies one the ability to criticize the Nazis, since they were, in fact, exercising their right of self-determination. After all, the other was infringing on German rights. The other is outright anarchy, since one who believes he is oppressed can just secede. Enforcing any laws against one who hasn't bought into the relevant legislation is oppression, unless one subscribes to a sovereign source of morality. Given that religions curb libertarian sensibilities, and libertarians aren't known for embracing social contract theory, one must concede that the right of self-determination is little more than anarchic nonsense. So as much as some people would like to imagine that the archetypal libertarian is Ron Swanson, it really is more of a vermin supreme. Stay away from the libertarians. They are not for you.